Have you been following this?
No, what
The
happened?
Prime Trust drama?
What's the Prime Trust drama?
Apparently, Prime Trust, which is a custodian, a crypto custodian, US based, Nevada regulated, um, for the entirety of 2021 was apparently sending customers funds to a set of keys that they don't control. And it's unclear who controls it and who has access.
Okay.
And like then effectively running a Ponzi scheme, where they were taking new deposits in money to like buy crypto to redeem other people's withdrawals.
Oh, well.
Negative shareholder equity.
Great. So we'll be starting here in 5 minutes. Usually we, like for the first 5 minutes after the event, we just kind of let people trickle in, figure out who's speaking, who's doing what, and then we can get started.
So there's some sort of Node app launching.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad you asked. We'll definitely highlight that as well.
Can I
For people who are,
install this Node app?
oh my gosh, Zachy, I'm so glad you asked. Yes, you can. If you just go to our website, actually, let me just gonna put in the link directly. Oh my gosh, maybe we'll ask you to demo it because you'll have the brand new experience of using the Node app. So I just posted the link for the Node app right there. For people who don't have it, please go ahead and install it. That is the easiest way for you to run a full Node experience. It does have a wallet built in as well. We keep calling it a Node app so that people understand it's not just a wallet. The primary use case is to really host a full node, for you to actually sync the full node, and it is basically a full node. And for people who have been using the CLI command, everything that you've done in the CLI in terms of like syncing, creating accounts, all of that will be transferred over to the Node app because it uses the same directory.
Can you push it in general? I don't know. I don't know how to use Discord, and like I saw it like
Okay.
briefly appear on the screen and then like disappear, and then I'm like, I can't click. I didn't click on it fast enough. It's lost forever. Here we go.
Zucky and I are boomers. We don't know how to use anything other than Slack.
I'm very good at Telegram. Telegram is really, really my thing.
Gotcha.
I
Have
did
people?
feel confused when I clicked get started, and it did not take me to this app. But now I see where it is.
Ooh, that's good feedback. Yeah, because traditionally our get started has been mostly for, the tech savvy people who are comfortable using the CLI. So,
I
but
do like the aesthetics of the website quite a bit.
why,
Like
thank
the
you.
sea creatures.
Yeah, Skylar, who is our designer here, he's responsible for making everything look this wonderful. So.
Okay, I'm downloading the thing.
Now Elena has stolen all of our private keys, right?
Oh
That's what's
yes.
happening here.
Oh no, wait. I'm not supposed to say that because as I found out that sarcasm does not work well on the internet. So I'd like to make it very clear that no, using the app is not good.
Stealing everyone's private keys.
Yeah. Rich Dot said that brutalist design is my favorite style. Um, I'm glad you like the app. I would not call it a brutalist design, but I'm very glad that you are a fan. So yeah, we'll just get started in about 4 minutes. Just like to give people some time to kind of settle in, trickle in. Yeah. And then we're also missing Matt, which I just realized. So I'm gonna go ahead and ping him as well. Okay, he saw my message, so hopefully he will make his way over here. So it sounds like, James, you are in the process of downloading the app. Is that correct?
Yes. I am lying about having written down the seed phrase at the moment.
No, it makes you check. It tests you. It gives you a test.
Ah,
However, the test is very easy. You could copy paste your entire seed phrase and then auto populate. So we
Oh,
tried to make that
let's see.
process
Okay. I
easier.
screenshotted my seed phrase and now I'm doing
There
it.
is a copy button. I'm loving this like live testing, live feedback. You could actually share your screen if you if you want.
Yeah,
So all
if you
this
want to
is
share your seed phrase.
Yeah,
well,
just so see this is where it happens.
yeah. So I'm also going to share my screen here in a bit and kind of show you the app. I won't go through the installation process just because I've gone through that. And I'm not going to go through the syncing process, but I'll kind of talk through what that would look like for people who are kind of new. But yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation, and I kind of said that to James right before this call as well. You know, you both are people who never mince their words, and you have very firm beliefs about how crypto should be. And you've always stuck to it, which I extremely appreciate. Oh, awesome. Matt is here.
Yeah.
And Matt also has been unapologetic about all
Matt.
his views and all of his kind of strong opinions about why decentralization matters in this space. So very, very excited to have this conversation. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me. Excited to chat, y'all.
Yeah, not
Awesome.
just to add also, Dan and I, Joe, we were ones leading development in the Node app months years because we were working with this. So we're here to answer any questions that if needed throughout the talk.
Awesome. It is a tiny bit hard to hear you, Joe. So not sure if it's a microphone issue or. Cool. All right. So in about 1 minute, we'll go ahead and get started. But yeah, you have Joe and Dan are here. If you have any questions about the app, feature requests, anything that you might want to comment on. You know, we're here, we're listening, and you get to ask us questions live, which is pretty great as well.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Dan. I think what Joe was trying to say is that we were two of the developers on the Node app, so we're thrilled that it launched and excited to like talk about it, answer any questions you might have.
I'm also seeing some questions coming into the general channel. If you guys actually post these questions here, it'll be, we'll just be able to answer them live. Okay, so I think with that, we can get started. So firstly, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Very excited to have this conversation, very excited to showcase the app as well. This has been a long running project and a lot of people have been, definitely looking forward to it. So let me just run through kind of an example, and I do see some questions coming in, but I'm just gonna do the demo first, and then we have a ton of people who can answer questions and so on. Okay, cool. I've never actually shared my screen, so hopefully this works. Oh no. Okay.
It's gonna make you
Yeah.
restart.
Okay.
Womp womp.
So sorry. Oh boy. Okay. I'll be back.
Matt, do you want to entertain us while Elena's gone?
Yeah, sure. Would you like a dance or what?
Story?
No, I'm currently as the Linux user installing the latest version of the app right now, and so yeah, if you guys want entertainment, I guess I could give you feedback as I go on the install process, but I don't think that's like the best content. I'll hand it back to Elena.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so I'm going to okay, 1 second. I think that this should work. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to run through this app and kind of show you what's happening. So when you download the app, the first view that you're going to get is kind of the installation process, or the getting started process. So it'll ask you, for instance, whether or not you want to import a new account, whether or not you want to create a new account. It will also ask you whether or not you want to contribute to telemetry. I highly encourage that you guys do. It's 100% optional. Obviously, we all here care really deeply about privacy, so we're never going to collect telemetry without your permission. However, telemetry does really help the engineering team get more visibility into the network, into the nodes, into what's happening, and it really helps us track like optimizations and improvements a lot faster. If you're ever curious where the data goes for telemetry, you can go to stats.ironfish.network, and you will see the culminate, like all the telemetry aggregated into that view. So you get the benefit of that as well. So once you're here, it will also ask whether or not you want to download from a snapshot or if you want to download from your peers. So in a very similar fashion that the other L1s, kind of work. If you want to sync from your peers, that means that your node will connect to other peers in the network, and it will start syncing from the Genesis block all the way until the head, meaning that the latest block. This could be a very long process depending on your peers, depending on different kind of configurations of your networking layer. So, for getting started, I do recommend you download from the snapshot because it will be a better user experience, and you will still get the confirmation that what you've downloaded is correct, because you are still going to be syncing from other peers past that snapshot as well. So I do want to point out that we keep calling this a node app because it does run the full node in the background. So for instance, if you click on the node tab, you'll see all the peers that you're connected to, what connection type you have to them, and all additional information. If you want to change any of your node settings, you can go here. Again, telemetry. If you want to disable or enable telemetry, that is in the settings tab. You can name your node. So for instance, if you're familiar with a CLI tool, you can always see all of your peers. And so if you provide a name for your node, then other peers will see your node with that name. Again, it's kind of useful for get more visibility into what the network is doing, for you to provide that. Block graffiti, that is, if you're familiar with our testnet, for instance, if you're a miner, you can actually put a graffiti into the, or you can put a string into the graffiti field in the block header. So there's kind of some legacy from that. And then you kind of have other settings as well. Node resources kind of gives you, again, more information about what is happening with your node. This is all the information that you could have gotten previously from the CLI, but now it's presented in a much, in a much nicer way. Okay, great. So back to my privacy accounts. So here I have 2 accounts. One of them is my hot wallet, then I have my demo wallet. So my demo wallet, I actually created a custom asset. Right now, custom assets are only able, you can only create them still using the CLI tool, but once you do, they will show up here in your wallet. So for this demo, I created 1,000 tokens for this node launch, event. And so they will be kind of showing up here. Again, my keys are here. I can, reveal them to you. My settings in terms of if I want to rename my account and so on. So for sending, I can obviously choose from the drop down which wallet I want to use to send. And I can also choose which asset I want to send as well. So if I want to send my node launch token, I can send it to, actually this is myself, but 1 second. I can send it back to my hot wallet, for instance. So copy this. And I'm going to send from the demo wallet, I'm going to send my custom asset. And I'm actually going to send to my hot wallet. And I'll send 1 token. Memo field as well. So for instance, I can send this. And that is it. So with any blockchain, transactions do take some time. So I can view my account activity, and I'll see that this current transaction is pending. And then I can also view it on the Block Explorer as well. So after that's done, it will sync and my hot wallet will have this custom asset. So currently it is pending. So we'll see that later on. We also added a functionality to have an address book. So if you're familiar with, or I do this all the time when I use like Ethereum and MetaMask, especially if you're sending a large amount. I usually like to send a test transaction of like, let's say 1 USDC or something, just to see if it made it there. And then I do it again for the real amount. But when I do it the second time, like nothing really has changed. Like I'm still copy pasting the same thing and I'm still feeling kind of nervous about it. So for the address book, we kind of made that flow a bit easier. So if you know your party and you know that you're going to be sending them a transaction many times, you could just create the address book. Great. And then for updates, every time we have a new version update, you'll get to see the release notes here. So again, that kind of gives you more visibility. And then lastly, you can do all of this in dark mode. Ooh, very, very nice. If you have any feedback on anything in terms of user flow, there are other features you want to see, even design feedback, please let us know. Yeah, cool. I'll switch over to Discord since if there are questions, I won't be able to see it. Okay, great. Cool. Let's see if there are any questions. Cool. Matt is excited that it works on Linux. Great. Have more iron than okay, well, these are great comments. Okay, perfect. So the reason why I wanted to invite all of you here, Zaki, Matt, and James in particular, is because the reason why we even built the Node app is we want to focus on decentralization. There are different metrics of how you grade a protocol for whether or not it is decentralized. Sometimes it's number of nodes. Sometimes it's number of miners. Sometimes it's different node implementations. Sometimes it's all of the above. Kind of like the metrics for how you grade that. For us, one of the metrics that we grade ourselves in terms of how decentralized Ironfish is how many full nodes there are contributing to the network and supporting the Ironfish system. So part of the reason why we made this node app so easy is because we have this thesis that people should be able to run full nodes very easily. And this is one step to do that. Additionally, for privacy chains in particular, the best way to get privacy is you need to run a full node yourself in order to get like a wallet that actually has that has no dependencies for any third-party service provider for for revealing information. And so this is the easiest way for you to get guaranteed privacy for your wallet. Cool. So I'll pause here. The question that I really wanted to pose to all of you guys is, you in particular have been very vocal on Twitter and otherwise that decentralization matters. And for me, that's just like a no-brainer. Like, of course it does. But I think in 2021 in particular, like the statement was very much tested with high throughput blockchains. So I kind of want to open it to you guys of like, why do you think decentralization matters, and why should we continue building things that are even harder to build to make sure that the product that we build is more decentralized? So I'll start with Matt, because I know you're very deeply passionate about this topic. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that especially now that we're in our nice little, our nice comfy little like bear lull, it's a good time to talk about why any of us are here in the first place and what we're supposed to be decentralizing. And I think the answer is, for me, the only time I'm interested is power. So like, I know a lot of people are interested in this sort of like positive case of like, look at how big my DAO is and how many people have my tokens or whatever. But if that doesn't actually track to more people having power when it was in fewer hands before, I'm not really that interested. So I think that's my interest here is, can we see more people actually having a say in network governance? Can we see that if there's ever a 3-letter agency that is trying to mess with your protocol, that you're confident that you have enough people around the world running your app that it doesn't matter? And yeah, so it's just sort of it's a bit of a back to basics to me, right? And if you can get all of those things, without decentralization, good, because it's a huge pain in the ass on the engineering side to make things work with more machines rather than fewer, and more people rather than fewer. But yeah, so it's just about removing power from big boys and moving it to us.
So that's a great answer. So if you could also kind of maybe give a quick intro about yourself and the projects that you've been working on.
Good idea. Yeah, sure.
Well, I want the people to understand, like, from like you're coming from a place where you've been building projects that are way harder to build because you want the
Sure.
decentralization features. So I want to make sure that that's highlighted.
Yeah, of course. So I first got involved in the space way back in 2014 because I was deplatformed by Visa. And this was before, I think, like the word, maybe some people knew what deplatforming was when it happened to me, but I don't know. It was like a pretty like edgy thing at the time. Anyway, I had been just like minding my own business, buying and selling gift cards in my spare time to make rent while I was working on a startup. And PayPal, through like command of Visa, back at the day, really didn't like what they considered great finance, which was these gift card sales. And so I ended up losing part of my livelihood because I had been using PayPal to pay people, and that's how I found Bitcoin. And so what that turned into eventually, there's a whole chain of projects that I'll share in a minute. But like what I always go back to is, even though I think that there's a lot of really interesting economic ideas where we can talk about, fighting the Fed on the Bitcoin side and then going after retail banks and removing their need on sort of the consumer side. That's what got me into the space. It's just like, if there's not someone who you're preventing from being deplatformed, you're probably not involved with an interesting project. So anyway, what that led to was I founded Fold, which is now I'm now on the board, and they've gone on to do greater things. It's a Web 2.5 is what we call it today. It's a debit card company that gives you Bitcoin back. And they're a little more laserized than me. So you guys may or may not be familiar, but if you're interested in getting Bitcoin back on your mortgage payments, for example, it's a cool app. After that, we started Keep, which eventually led to the TBTC Bitcoin Bridge on Ethereum, and we're working on bringing that to some other chains as well. It would be very cool to get private Bitcoin, for example. And then after that, we have an open source, fairly popular MetaMask alternative called Tahoe, that is copyleft and that takes all of the swap fees and sends them to the community. And we're also working on this one I'm less used to talking about, but a privacy first period tracker. So that's kind of the sort of like mix of like freedom tech and cryptocurrency that we work on. And after that first project became 2, became 3, we decided to call that effort thesis instead of just listing projects every time. So yeah, so that's me. And I think the project that's most relevant to Ironfish in particular, and the reason that I'm excited about this milestone today, is that bootstrapping a peer-to-peer network is really painful. You always think that it's just like a slap a lip P2P here or there, and then you're done. But the truth is that there's still a lot of black magic on the networking side, and that it's quite difficult just to like coordinate a lot of people to run the same piece of software at the same time. I'm like incredibly impressed to see that this design looks reasonable and that you have been thoughtful about telemetry. Like I shouldn't be surprised, but I feel like the bar is quite low for people who are bootstrapping new networks, and so. Yeah, so just really, really thrilled to see that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Zaki, I know you worked a lot in the Cosmos ecosystem, and now you're working on a new protocol as well. And you've always been like very opinionated about kind of your beliefs. I would love to kind of hear your answer as well. Like, what does decentralization mean to you firstly? How do you create a blockchain on what is decentralization? And tell us more about some of the things that you're working on as well.
Okay. Yeah. I guess what I would, I like building things. I like building things and putting them out in the world. The process of building blockchain protocols and having a bunch of live protocols that, run other people's money is, is both thrilling and a never-ending nightmare. But like, why? I guess the first question is like, why build decentralized things? And I guess the core goal, or like my core belief, is that like actually like no end user cares about decentralization. But the trick is to get end users to try and care about the things that they can only get through decentralization. Decentralization is primarily a mechanism of giving a system a set of properties and then making it really, really hard to change those properties. So like I could talk, Cosmos is this system that basically wanted to treat bridging between blockchains as like a first class part of building a blockchain. That not just that like we should, that like multiple blockchains should exist, but it should be secure and easy and censorship resistant. And you should be able to bridge between, like when you make a new blockchain, you should be able to bridge and onboard users and onboard capital on your blockchain without having to do any business development. You should just be able to interact with software. So that was like the core sort of vision of Cosmos, which is running today and moves many tens of millions of dollars every day over a permissionless bridging protocol called IBC. Tendermint Consensus has secured some of those valuable blockchains on the face of the earth, including BNB chain and Matic, and then many of the Cosmos chains. And so that whole system works. And then Sommelier is like probably my main project right now. And what's Sommelier is really an answer to this question of, well, we've actually seen a lot in this last cycle, as we see in every cycle, about why decentralization is important, which is that like most people who used blockchains in the 2021 to 2022 2021 bull market, most of them were interacting with centralized entities. They were interacting with FTX, they were interacting with Voyager, they were interacting with Celsius, and all of these centralized things marketed themselves as giving people the best of blockchain, but without having to deal with all of the complexity and the general nightmare that is decentralization. But at the end of the day, they lost everyone's money. So what Sommelier is basically a protocol that does is it goes and it puts your money to work in DeFi in a highly optimized way. So we generate there's a strategy on our platform that generates the highest stablecoin yield on Ethereum. There's a strategy on our platform that generates the highest ETH denominated yield on Ethereum. But it does it in a way that because it's a decentralized protocol, it actually has transparency, the fact that there are multiple checks and balances at multiple layers of the system that depend on at least two different blockchains, sometimes more, that provide strong checks and balances that the strategy can't rug the users and tell you that we are putting your money in UniV3 and earning yield from providing liquidity, but actually we went out and bought a bunch of Bitcoin miners or gambled it all away on a poker table when we said we were actually doing this. So the whole point of decentralization is to create a set of properties that are extremely difficult to change, and then align those properties ideally with the benefits to users, i.e. They're able to grow their wealth, have self-custody of their funds, participate in decentralized organizations, trade ape pictures if that's what they'd like, and ideally do that in a way that is looks after their interests.
Gotcha. I mean, that's a pretty great answer. What are some of the things that you're really excited about in the Cosmos ecosystem right now? I know you talked about IBC and bridges. So I guess
I think there's like an interesting, we're like at an interesting inflection point in Cosmos where in many ways the like external perception of Cosmos has been never been so negative, primarily because in many ways like every other blockchain ecosystem, most notably Ethereum, has in many ways adopted a lot of the ideas and architecture of Cosmos in significant ways. And it's like generally trying everything, most blockchains with few exceptions are becoming more and more like Cosmos every day. So it's like, okay, everything else is becoming Cosmos. Cosmos is no longer special or interesting or unique. On the other hand, we seem to be like actually like right at the experiencing like a birth of new use cases, new applications, new development frameworks on Cosmos that are all sort of launching around now. One of the biggest things about Cosmos is in general, there weren't actually a lot of applications on Cosmos in the last, for the last couple of years, but like just in the last month, there's like a no loss gambling app called Cosmos Millions. There's like a bunch of lending protocols. There's like liquid staking is taking off. Like a maker style CDP vault from another Cosmos project called Agoric just launched. Just is sort of in soft launch today. So just like there's a lot more stuff to be doing in Cosmos. We're actually seriously getting pretty serious about tackling some of the usability challenges that having a bunch of different blockchains that where you move between bridges to them. We're actually getting serious about figuring out these problems. And so, yeah, I think the next, 6 months of Cosmos are going to be pretty interesting. They will really define whether or not Cosmos, succeeds as its own unique thing, or basically whether or not it was like the right architecture, but then that architecture was adopted by the rest of the blockchain ecosystem and it becomes much less distinctive.
Wow, that's so interesting. Okay, cool. Well, speaking of bridges, James, you've been working on bridges for probably 5 years now, if not more.
Yeah, about as long as anyone.
Yeah. So can you tell us kind of your journey of what were some of your earlier bridge projects to some of your later bridge projects?
Yeah. I got into Bitcoin back in 2013, 2014-ish full time. Back then, the thing that excited me and the reason I keep doing this is because, as Matt and Zaki talked about, anyone can participate in this on equal footing with anyone else. If you want to know that Bitcoin's running correctly, you can run a full node and you can check that. You can participate directly into the financial system that you rely on. That's never really been a thing before crypto. And so that kind of, call it decentralizing power or call it what you will, is giving access to these systems of power to more people is important to me. My interest in bridges came because you can extend these technical setups to have communication between blockchains using the same mechanisms that you use to allow people to verify chains in the first place. You can turn this like access to validating the financial system into access to validating multiple financial systems together. And you can use that to do a lot of things people want, like move tokens around via IBC or via some other bridge, or buy ape pictures. The thing that keeps me interested in bridges is that people just keep coming up with new blockchains that do different things and have different value propositions and characteristics. You can't just build a protocol and be done with it. You've got to constantly reevaluate what you're building and why, and try to get ahead of all the different protocols out there. It's a very interesting space to be in, and never boring, as you say.
This might be kind of a hot conversation topic. What are L2s? And I say this earnestly because L2s have always looked to me like L1s, but maybe even weaker in some degrees in terms of decentralization. Like it's just kind of an L1 with a different consensus mechanism. I already see James unmuted. And every L2 has a bridge between the L2 and the underlying L1. And we are seeing kind of this kind of like a cosmos, like a cosmos. I don't know how to make that into a verb. Basically, there are bridges everywhere. So instead of being like blockchains, it's kind of like a soup of chains, or like a spaghetti of chains at this moment in time. And so I definitely want to hear James's perspective on this. What are your thoughts on L2s, and what are your thoughts on kind of like the cosmofication of crypto in general?
When we talk about a blockchain, you expect it to provide a few things: a consensus process, some kind of history or past blocks, some current state of the chain with contracts or balances or whatever. There's a few of these like security guarantees that we expect them to provide. An L2 is a blockchain that borrows or rents some of those guarantees or features from another blockchain. So when we talk about rollups, they're renting data availability from some host, and that's why we call it an L2, is because it relies on that host in order to provide everything we expect a blockchain to provide. Cosmos, we would generally not refer to as L2s because those chains don't rely on each other. They interoperate, but there's no host rollup relationship.
Gotcha. So this is maybe a sensitive question, but I think I'll ask it anyways, which is, people are generally afraid of bridges, and they're afraid of bridges for different reasons. Bridges get hacked, there are vulnerabilities, people lose money. But there have been a lot of bridge designs that have been revisited, for instance, with no consequent hacks. And there are many bridge designs and bridges that have never been hacked. So in terms of like bridge security, what are your thoughts? And I see, Matt, that you're already unmuted, so please go ahead.
Thought I'd dive in front of the bullet for James before it gets too spicy. No, I guess I just wanted to say that I work closely with Least Authority and a bunch of auditors in the space, and I have for years. And one of the discussions that we had recently with some former Least Authority folks is the Atomic Wallet hack that happened recently. And there are a lot of hacks in our space that are really complicated, and you need sort of like the Twitterati to sort of like explain the transaction if it's on Ethereum, or really if it's anywhere, and they'll explain like, oh, this is a Merkle proof, or this is, oh, well, this was an internal transaction, so no one could have known, or they sort of explain how did this particular hack happen. And usually there are all these interesting circumstances, and for those of us who like popcorn, there's lots of popcorn. But there are also hacks that are just sort of pathetic, right? And everyone knew in advance this system is terrible, and probably a lot of people said this system is terrible, but users didn't know. And so I think a lot of people like to talk about the complex hacks because it's kind of catnip for nerds, and let's be honest, like most of us, if we're on this call, are kind of nerdy and enjoy this stuff. But if you look at Atomic Wallet, and the reason I brought up Atomic Wallet and Least Authority is that Atomic Wallet went to get an audit years ago from Least Authority, which is a well-known and well-regarded auditing firm. And Least Authority gave them all their findings, and Atomic Wallet just basically said they had no intent in actually fixing the issues. And Least Authority spent a very long time deciding this, but they finally said, okay, well, we need to responsibly disclose, and we need to let users know that that this wallet is incredibly unsafe, and we won't give anyone details, so we won't disclose in a way that could hurt people's funds today. We will tell them, like, look, if you're a user of Atomic Wallet, you should move your funds and maybe consider not using this wallet anymore. And I think that happened, it was at least 2 years ago, by my memory. I believe Atomic Wallet is now suing Least Authority. So I'm sure we're going to hear more about that in the future. But you know, a couple weeks back, they lost something like $12 million in user funds. And from what we can see, it's because they're printing private keys on a server somewhere. And you know, if you're North Korea and it's your job to make money off fools in crypto, like what better way than someone who literally thinks it's okay to log their users' private keys in a server that they directly control. So look, that's not about bridges, but the reason I think it's applicable is with bridges and security, it is one of the more difficult pieces of software that you could write. If you are in the Cosmos ecosystem, or if you're in an ecosystem that's like built to make bridging easy, that's excellent. But if you're dealing with the stuff I deal with, which is like Bitcoin, which doesn't really particularly want to be bridged, or if you're dealing with all of these chains where you're trying to get them to basically have the same consensus and they don't, yeah, it's devilishly tricky to write. I think the first thing that we can all do as users is when someone tells you that a system is dangerous, you need to trust them. When you hear from an authority, I hate to say this, but if you're not comfortable validating source or looking into a system yourself and someone tells you get out, you need to get out. It is hard to imagine how we're going to go from the world we're in right now, where people are losing, you know, 100 million here, 200 million there, to a world where we're all self-sovereign and we're confident in the code that we run and that our money's not going to disappear. But I can say that at a bare minimum, as a user, you should do diligence on everyone involved in the bridges creation. So if you have someone who's been around in the space for a long time, or they have a good reputation, or they have taken principled stances on security, I think that those are the people that we should try to, whose projects we should try to use, rather than something like Atomic Wallet. And if anyone on this call is an Atomic Wallet user and you haven't seen this, please get your money out. Anyway, stepping on my soapbox, both of these gents know more about bridging than I do. So.
Awesome. Well, we can also kind of go back to the original topic of like decentralization. The other question I had is, it is harder to build projects that are more decentralized. And so the question is, like, what is the benefit that we are getting out of it? Another way of phrasing that is, what are the use cases that decentralization actually unlocks? Like, are we doing this for the sake of signaling, or are we doing this to actually unlock different use cases? Zaki?
Well, I don't know. I had a question for you.
Okay, cool.
Which was, Ironfish is an L1 blockchain that has not really prioritized bridges as a feature. How do you think about that? Like,
Oh man, well, I'm so glad you asked. You're asking like really great questions. It's as if you're like, you know, kind of read our script. So Ironfish launched about 2 months ago, and bridges are definitely top of mind for us. Everyone on this call actually, I think, are to some degree an expert in building bridges, or building in ecosystems that build bridges. Or, you know, in Matt's case, building bridges, or even in James's case, building bridges to Bitcoin, which is an unruly blockchain to work with, from a kind of a bridging perspective. So we're definitely acutely interested. We're building Ironfish to be like the generic privacy platform. And the reason why I keep asking about like the difference between L2s and L1s is because we kind of get this question all the time of, you know, are you an L2 then? If you're trying to build privacy for Ethereum or build privacy for Bitcoin, doesn't that make Ironfish more of an L2? And I think it's because people have this misconception of what an L2 is or what an L1 is. And so I think we have borrowed maybe some ideology from the Cosmos ecosystem by saying that no, like Ironfish is its own layer 1, it has its own security, it has its own full nodes, its own miners, its own consensus layer. It's a full-blown blockchain, it's fully decentralized, and we are able to in the future bridge to other chains and actually support those assets. So for instance, the reason why I showcased the fact that Ironfish today can support custom assets, and by the way, we're the only privacy layer 1 that even supports private custom assets. The reason why I showcase that feature is so that we can do bridge operators, or so that we can do bridges, and those bridge operators could actually ferry across different assets. So for instance, we're acutely interested in what would a private Bitcoin use case look like, and what would a private stablecoin use case look like, and even though we don't have bridges today, we certainly can, and we can have that functionality of having wrapped assets. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Awesome. Yeah, but in terms of like L2s versus L1s, part of the reason why we're building Ironfish as an L1, which is definitely the harder path to take, is so it could actually support multiple chains. And so we're kind of thinking of ourselves as a chain agnostic privacy platform. And there's definitely a lot of work ahead of us, just like you pointed out, but we're definitely starting. Cool. So you kind of dodged my original question, which is, what are the use cases that decentralization unlocks? Okay, one of us has to answer this question.
Things that are politically unpopular. I think that's I want to send money to someone and you don't want me to, or I want to. I mean, it doesn't. That sounds nefarious, right? But it's a lot of really simple stuff. So, for example, if you look at U.S. history, like, well, I don't want you to take my gold, or well, I want to be able to fund these truckers in Canada, or I think. I mean, and then sometimes it looks just like people are just plain old doing securities fraud, and I think that obviously I'm the most interested in not that, and where people are actually doing interesting things with their money. I think the hard thing for a lot of people who aren't in our space to understand is, it's easy if you're a person in power to say that anyone who if you're in power, it's easy to say that anyone who's doing something that you haven't approved of is a bad guy, and that they need to be like legislated against and eventually thrown in jail or threatened with violence. And so the whole reason that we have all this stuff is to make sure that all of the rights of ours that can be protected by math are. And yeah, so I mean, you can go a lot more libertarian than that, but I think that's how I look at it. Like, ultimately, it's to make sure that our politically sensitive or potentially unpopular transactions, not only can they not be blocked in the case of Bitcoin, but in the case of Ironfish, it's no one's business.
Yeah, well said. James, what use cases does decentralization unlock for you?
Decentralization is often a necessary prerequisite to privacy, as Matt brought up. And privacy is not like the ability to hide what you're doing. It's the ability and the right to choose what you disclose to others. So, I'm on this space and you can hear my voice, but I'm choosing not to be on video. I'm choosing not to tell you, where I live or what my desk looks like. I'm choosing, not to tell you what I'm doing after this. My privacy to choose what I share and what I don't is a fundamental human right, and that extends from my day-to-day life to my financial transactions to anything else that I choose to present to the outside world. Protecting people's right to choose how they interact with the world is dependent on decentralization, on them not having to go through a centralized gatekeeper to make those decisions and to enforce them.
Nice. That's very well said. We have some other people in the audience. Oh, go ahead, Zachy.
I'll just give my take quickly.
Please.
I agree, like privacy, huge important use case, especially. Like one of the things that I think a lot about, and I've been working on privacy for like a decade in various forms, is that, and I would say that like mostly, especially like my political advocacy work on privacy, like I'm part of a nonprofit called Restore the Fourth, and like have done all this privacy work. And basically, like all of that privacy work is essentially a failure. It's a failure because it's obsoleted by technology. Like we were like we like very happily like we were very proud of ourselves in like 2013, 2014 when we got like San Francisco to like ban police operated facial recognition cameras, and then everyone just put a facial recognition camera in their doorbell, and that was entirely basically pointless. And so like meat space privacy is really dead, and digital privacy is the only privacy that we really have. So that's a really important use case. But there's another one that like I think is very just like sort of more economic, which is that like a big part of of sort of the like the economy of the world is a search is like a is this constant cost of searching for acceptable counterparties between so like I want to pay you I want to pay for this like item and have it shipped across the world. I want to have like some mechanism of enforcement that like if I actually ship the item and you actually get it, I will pay you. I want to be able to pay for like especially digital things. Like ad impressions are one of the largest markets in the world. But one would expect like like vectorized data sets and machine learning and like trained models and GPU compute and like all of these things. Like there's an ever expanding set of digital commodities. Finding except like and like for many of these things, like for instance, if you want to buy ad impressions, you can buy it pretty much from two vendors, Google or Facebook, and they are the buyer, like they are running the bidding algorithm, they are running the auction, they are choosing what inventory is available. And that's like a really terrible place for like, for the economy to like kind of function where, where things are so completely stacked against like all participants in the economy and to the benefit of a monopoly. And so I think a big part about like what we do with building decentralized systems is by making the future of finance, the future of coordination and like open source, neutral, and sort of locking the door open, so that like you aren't enshrining some corporation, some entity as like a middleman over like huge important parts of the global economy, which is basically where things have been going, has been trending towards with like the consolidation of the cloud computing market, the way the ad impression market evolved, et cetera. Like the most important digital commodities are basically primarily traded on monopolistic institutions right now, and blockchains are the only real plausible alternative.
Nice, awesome. Do you guys have questions for me? Do you have any questions about how Ironfish works, how the Node app works, anything like that? Okay, I guess you guys are experts. Oh boy. Someone asked, am I
Well,
single?
the apps,
Oh, okay, go ahead.
the
Your
app
question's
has
probably
been
better.
really easy to use so far.
That's awesome. I'm not single,
for-
happily married. Sorry, James, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. For anyone wondering, my seed phrase is the word abandon 23 times and then the word art.
That's way better than my test ball.
I don't think that's a valid phrase on the elliptic curve.
If you have enough, if you abandon enough art and you test enough balls, I think the checksum passes.
Uh,
I forgot about that.
Mine is valid. Art is the
Wow.
earliest word for which it is valid.
Wow.
Yeah, the app's been really easy to use. I think my account is just about synced while we've been chatting here.
Nice. That's awesome. Cool. Well, I see there are some people who want to speak on stage, but it'll be way more efficient if you put your question in the chat and then we can address it. But Cool. Well, since I have you guys, you're probably one of the more interesting people in the crypto space. What is happening in crypto right now that you think is worth mentioning? And I say this very cautiously because there are things that are wild, that are sad, that are definitely in flux. But what is in crypto that we should know about? Nothing. Crypto's totally
Zuck-
fine. Okay.
Zucky brought up earlier the Prime Trust thing. This is, all of the previous bull market insanity still shaking out. We're not
Yo.
done shaking out the space yet.
We barely, I think we got out of Prime Trust at full with 2 days space before they paused withdrawals. That was horrifying. Yeah, I say I'm just on the board, but I'm so proud of the team, and I am so ashamed that this is still happening. And when is everyone going to be shook out?
Yeah, I also think it's. I mean, I think the like, it is odd to me, frankly, that like we're at like Bitcoin is at 30K, but like I feel like we're at like retail capitulation.
It's great. How bullish though is that to have this price, and then people are like, think that it's still over. I love it.
So yeah, it's a wild time. It's I just it's like everyone is really risk off right now. It is definitely hard to grow anything, and so I definitely wish Ironfish luck in with its new app. Uh, I think it is a little bit of an interesting time to be bootstrapping an L1. Again, because people are really risk off, but like, people are always there's always a population of people who do seem to be interested in engaging with these projects, and like this is a time for the community to kind of start small and figure itself out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we're kind of seeing that as well. Like our community at this moment in time actually feels very good. And so I genuinely say that I'm very thankful for the people that we have. Everyone in our Amish community understands what we're trying to do and understands like the magnitude of what we're trying to do. And so I'm just very thankful for that. Like, even the comments that I'm seeing here, people are here because they want to see a privacy solution for crypto. They're very excited about this, the idea of like an unstoppable, unkillable, resilient, durable privacy platform that could support multiple chains. It could make existing assets private. And so I think like we're getting to a really good spot. But yeah, I mean, for sure, like building this environment does carry different challenges. And we can't really directly influence the price at all. But what we can do is we can build. And right now the team feels very, at least I personally feel very motivated by this kind of empowerment of like, like we can build and we can build really great things. And honestly, like kind of coast under the radar for a while until we are kind of building out this vision for an unstoppable privacy platform, and until it is fully resilient and durable. Matt,
Yeah,
were
I
you
guess
going to
just
say something?
no. I'm really just lots of like, yes, like I totally agree. It's the best time to bootstrap in a lot of ways. As long as you don't die, we are all going to be a lot stronger and have rising tides, and that's really exciting. And I think that you kind of see, I don't know, we just have an opportunity to see who the people are who are real about the space right now, right? Because if you're not real, you're not here anymore. And so, yeah, it's a little trite now because enough people have seen this happen enough cycles, but this is the best time to build and it's the best time to make friends. Because then you just sort of get a lot of wind at your back on the way up.
Yeah. No, I truly agree. Yeah.
Bear market growth is real growth.
Exactly. It is a huge pain though. And I think the one thing that that I guess I'll toss out for everyone that I've struggled with over the years has been this like reflexivity idea, which I think is tough. Is like, you know, in a normal startup, you push and you push and you push and you try to get early users.
Oh man, I think your voice cut off.
Well, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Could you repeat what
No, I
you
was
said?
just gonna say, yeah, I mean, in a bear market at a normal startup, things don't get that much harder. It's hard to get funding, but users are users and they're difficult to get no matter what. In crypto, you know, because everything has a price, if the price goes up, users will appear. So it's actually very difficult to know if you're building the right thing or if you just became a fad. And I think it's tough as a community to know if people are going to stick around. And so I think that that's the one thing that I do wonder about bootstrapping new projects right now is like how can we use reflexivity to our advantage, even a market like this, and how can we make sure, you know, how can we basically join our narratives together, right? So obviously, Elena, you know, I want to bring Bitcoin to Ironfish, and if we can find a way to pivot the Bitcoin community and the Bitcoin meme to Ironfish, I think that that's a huge win there or goal. So anyway, it's a hard time, but it's also a fun time.
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely could not agree more. I think someone said something along the lines of an overnight success takes 10 years. And I think that's fairly true, even in crypto. I think like the projects that are extremely successful, like if you look at when those companies were started, you know, they were started several bear markets ago, you know. And so, you know, a lot of these things, you know, do take time, and it does take kind of this figuring out like what your community is and building it. And kind of like you said, sometimes it's hard to figure out who that community is in an able market because everything's going up and there's so much hype. And you're not sure if what you're building is actually something that people want or if it's because of the bull market that there's interest. And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I think like I actually feel more excited about Ironfish now than I've ever been, which is kind of this really empowering feeling of like we have the funds, we have the best talent, like we have the platform to build this out, and it's amazing. Cool. All right. We are at practically time. So if there are any more questions that you have, I see that there's some questions about the Node app in particular. We are going to be answering them. There is a user, Kibir Pank. We are very happy to answer your question if you just type it out. So please do. But we'll be here. We'll be in the general channel. And we'll be answering questions for the rest of today as well. I want to give a huge thank you to Matt, Zaki, and James. Thank you so much for being here. You again, like you're like one of the few people in crypto who are like OG veterans who I deeply respect and who have been kind of consistently building products and like being very unapologetic about your stances. And so I just really want to like thank you for continuing to be in the space. We need more of you. And I'm very thankful that you were here today with us. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
everyone.
Perfect.
And
All right.
congratulations on the launch.
Thank you. Appreciate it. A lot of work ahead of us, but definitely a start. Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone.